Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here. Welcome to this Aimless Wanderings vlog for War of the Doctors Part 4. The 4th episode of War of the Doctors. Now, this is the Eve of War episode. This episode takes place before the battle. So in a last attempt to prevent the war from happening, the Fruit Pastel, Saurian Dynamite Doctors go over to Pompous' ship to try and get him to change his mind about the situation by dressing up as Martin, basically. Well, not really dress up, but they pretend to be Martin the Pug using a puppeteer in a 4D hologram. But Pompous doesn't, so they get locked in a cell and then they have to escape. Meanwhile, the Blobotrons are confronting a lot of Daleks, although the Blobotrons are throwing custard pies at them. But the Daleks are in a kind of a standoff, so it's basically the Eve of War standoff. The Blobotrons are probably just throwing the custard pies because they're Blobotrons. Enough said. And they're trying to discourage the Daleks, I suppose. And there's a lot of moments where we see the Daleks out in the space just being funny. There's even one case where one of them has to be exterminated by its own kind because it likes the custard. That was funny. Pompous also is starting to doubt his moves at one point, and he even, when he thinks he's talking to a ghost of Martin, that he's actually starting to feel like he should change his ways and maybe come with a truce. But as soon as he finds out that it's the Doctors behind the Martin, he's pretty much back to how he was a few moments ago, just before, and he's probably really pissed off with them and has to interrogate with them. Also, they forget the Master was on their side, so Pompous' plan to use him for emotional something with Jake, emotional warfare or something, that doesn't go to plan, and the Master has a really funny line about it, like it being his bearded backside. Emotional warfare or something, my bearded backside. And Sorry asks, his backside's got a beard? Yeah, there's so many funny lines like that, and Sorry's outrage in part 1 across the entire 6-part story. It is so funny. This is probably the funniest story, as well as the... Yeah, this is probably the most funniest. So, yeah. In the end, Tim helps him escape, and this is going to be important for later, because Tim's kind of, sort of helping them, and Pompous meets the mysterious woman, and thinks it's Dynamite's companion. Well, we're going to find out the truth in the last episode, so, well, I would say go and listen to all 6 episodes right now, and also A Story State of Affairs afterwards, so you've got kind of an idea of what's going to come up following this story, with future stories. But yeah, it's just hold on tight. So that's War of the Doctors Part 4. Now, when I first heard it, I liked it a lot. It was very funny. Came out on Comic Relief, the day Comic Relief 2015 was happening in the UK. But the thing is, it wasn't quite as, well, at the time, it wasn't quite as good of a story as I thought it would be, and even with the entire 6-parters out, I thought it was a weaker story, maybe the weakest or second weakest after part 3. Listening to it, it's a really fun and interesting story and really entertaining and lots of funny moments. But as a progression in the story, there isn't a huge amount. Not really. The closest is basically making sure the war does go ahead. No, not making sure, just the fact it does go ahead, nothing's changed. The closest I think we do get is Pompous' kind of thinking about changing. He's he's kind of considering going back to his good ways, maybe calling the whole thing off. But then the Doctors bring out the Martin Pug, so he says stuff a bit more, and then he realises it's them. So nothing's changed. So for pretty much no progression in the story, not really. However, it's more interesting than last part, because the last part, it was interesting getting all the armies together. However, that only took half the episode, and the other half they had to worry about the Cybermen taking over, and then Pompous standoff. This one actually has a bit more stuff going on, despite it not really progressing the story so much. Yeah, and like I said, the last episode's cliffhanger wasn't really very good. Well, it was a good cliffhanger, it just didn't really come to anything, because this story would just start with them writing in the diaries or in the blogs, and then Pompey sending off the Daleks. Oh, for the standoff. So, part 4 is basically just filler, really. Basically a bit like the second half of part 3, more or less, except it's a bit more interesting than the second half of part 3. So, overall, War of the Doctors part 4, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It's funny, it's interesting, it's well done, but it doesn't really progress the story that much. And it's not quite as much of a spectacle as the first two ones. They were really great in their story progression, but this one doesn't quite hit the nail on the head. And I would say part 3 the same. So that's this episode done. Next time we'll be looking at part 5, The Battle Commences. I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nick Payne Extra YouTube channel.